Well, South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune has been watching all of this closely. And Senator, I think you have the same kind of take on this as our last stock market guest, Amelia. That is, their focus might be misplaced. And if the administration is targeting banks, he has kind of put them in the line of fire. Is that it, essentially?
Well, he has, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're looking for somebody to blame, Neil. But if you look at the president's policies and his economic record since he's been in office, unemployment's gone up, the debt's gone up. You've got gas prices are up 85%. Health care costs, we just found out last week, are continuing to go up, and much of that attributed to Obamacare. You've got people on food stamps have gone up, people on poverty have gone up. All these metrics suggest that these policies that he has put in place are not working. And to the point your previous guest made, many of these things coming out of some of the legislation passed here by Washington as these federal agencies begin to implement it is driving up the cost not only for people out there who are trying to create jobs and create economic opportunity for people in this country, but also for consumers. And we've seen that with some of the banking legislation that's passed that's now being implemented.
But you're not dismissing the possibility that banks can be as opportunistic as some of those airlines with the bag fees, the drink fees, the pillow fees, the blanket fees. The airlines quickly found out, hey, guys, we can make a lot of money doing this. So maybe the banks are onto that as well, right?
Well, and look, I just think that when you're in business, when you pass costs on, and we predicted that all along, that when the interchange fee legislation, the Durbin Amendment passed, for example, that was going to get passed on. We're now seeing that. And you know, we've lost almost 3,000 jobs in South Dakota in the financial services industry, about 1,000 of them because of the passage of the CARD Act, some because of the takeover of the student lending business by the government. And so you just see all these policies coming out of Washington that are making it more difficult for the job creators.
Senator, then isn't it risky, to put it mildly, for a U.S. senator of either party, of any party, to then go to the floor of the Senate and say, take your money out of a big bank and risk, almost tempt a bank run, something that the financial reform law, of which he was a signee, was aimed at stopping.
Right. Well, and I think what has happened, what the administration is doing, Neil, what some of my colleagues in Congress, particularly the Democrats in Congress, are doing, is trying to beat up business. They're trying to beat up the people who are out there creating the jobs. And I was visiting with some business leaders last week who said the best thing that could happen to this country, notwithstanding changes in policy, is a change in leadership. Because there is so much capital that is sidelined right now because businesses are tired, they've been intimidated by the administration, they don't know what's coming next in terms of regulations and taxes. I think these are very, very serious issues when it comes to whether or not we want to see jobs created in this country. And clearly the administration has put in place policies that have made it more difficult, more costly.
You know, Senator, you always wonder, that's an expression, if you can't lead the parade, lead the protest. So in other words, if you're the administration or you're Democrats and you're up against the wall on this economy that's fumbling, what have you, then you could turn around and say, well, it's not us, it's those evil banks, or it's those evil Wall Streeters, or it's anyone rich. And you could foment something there, and you could sort of deflect nicely there. Do you feel just, I don't want to put this politically, Senator, that they could be onto something to turn this around to a populist campaign from which they could triumph?
I think that's a very thought-out strategy on their part. I think what they have concluded is, we got this failed record, we have these failed policies, let's compensate for that, and let's create this class warfare argument where we blame business, where we blame people with money, when in fact it is their policies that have made it more difficult for people to get jobs in this country. And so all these protests that are directed at businesses really ought to probably more accurately be directed at Washington, D.C., which is where these policies originated. But I do think the administration has adopted a political strategy of trying to create an us versus them argument and play on this populist streak that I think most Americans right now understandably are frustrated about what's happening here in Washington, but try to capitalize on that and use that as a way to springboard to re-election, rather than trying to solve the fundamental problems that we have right now, which are over-regulation, over-taxation, and a federal government that's out of control in terms of spending.
Senator, thank you. Always good having you on. John Thune, South Dakota.
Thanks, Neil.
In Washington. Thank you, sir.